السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله رب العالمين، نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، وما يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Before I begin, can I just ask the brothers to move up a little bit? There's a lot of people off during the spring break time. Alhamdulillah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Bayyinah, a verse that I want to try to reflect on today, and the notion of reviving our hearts and the purification of our hearts. And where He says, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ وَيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَذَلِكَ دِينُ الْقَيِّمَةِ. صدق Allah al-Azim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here calls upon us in the notion of sincerity, and where He says that I have not instructed you to do anything except worship me solely and with sincerity. And where we, as those who call ourselves worshippers of Allah, give our worship completely to Him, and the deen, the way of life, completely to Him. And notice here that the idea of deen, by the way, is talking about something that is holistic. Usually we translate this idea as religion a lot of times. But religion, really, in the connotation of religion, makes it seem like this is something that we put on a Friday afternoon, and then afterwards, khalas, we're done. But the idea of deen is that it's something that happens from the time you wake up until the time you go to sleep. Whatever it is that's influencing you, whatever it is that's driving you to make the type of decisions that you make in your life, this is your deen. And as we see, usually, the human being continually forgets what it is that his purpose truly was. And in this sort of innate forgetfulness, we begin to drive ourselves and our decision making based upon our desires, based upon our lower selves. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to remind us throughout the Quran to have sincerity in what it is that we're doing. One of the most beautiful hadiths, the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ, that has been related to us, that most of our scholars started all of their works with, Imam al-Bukhari in his Sahih, Imam al-Nawawi in his 40 Hadith al-Nawawi, begin with the hadith where Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu an, Amir al-Mu'mineen Abi Hafs Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu an, قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله ومن كانت هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. Right? Where he says صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم that intentions exclusively, in the way in which you delineate it from the Arabic grammar, intentions and your actions are based upon your intentions. And that whatever you have intended is what it is that you will reap from it. So whoever makes his intention, his or her intention for Allah and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sallam, then this is what his intention was for, and this is where his reward is going to be coming from. And whoever makes his intention to other than that, specifically here he talks about making hijrah, right? In the sense that you've done, your intention was to make this action so that you can have some type of worldly gain, or to marry a woman, for instance, then this is what your reward will be. And we're called upon to reflect, right, on this joyous day, this blessed day of Friday, where our community also, and the idea of, when they say TGIF, right, thank God it's Friday. The connotation of the thank God it's Friday for some Muslims may be thank God it's Friday because it's Jum'ah. Or thank God it's Friday because now I can party. I can go find some, way of leisurely activity. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually calls upon us to reflect. And He calls upon us to understand where the true benefit of life is going to be coming from. And where He says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمْعَةِ فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعَ ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. O you who believe, when the call is made for the prayer on Friday, then abandon everything that you're doing and go to the remembrance of Allah. Go remember God Almighty. That is better for you if only you knew. And while this verse is speaking to us collectively as a Muslim ummah, it actually came down to the best of generations, the Sahaba, radiallahu anhum jami'an. And where it was speaking to this group of companions at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, recognizing within them that amongst you there are those who are sincere in the call, and there are those who may not be as sincere. And this is where the idea of the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, began to come out. In the beginning, during the Meccan phase, right, the majority of the Muslims, if not all of the Muslims at that time, were not Muslims because it was a popular thing to be. They weren't getting any type of reward by being Muslim. As a matter of fact, they were being tortured for being Muslims. It wasn't a cool thing to be a Muslim at that point. Whereas in Medina, it became a very cool thing to a certain degree to be a Muslim. And this is where you began to see people now who may have come into Islam with ulterior motives. And this is what was being called upon. And the inclination for people to go about trying to do something in this world, to collect what is theirs of the dunya, the rizq, right? Their provisions in this dunya is not a bad thing. But one should reflect and try and understand, where do these things fit in to our drive from within ourselves, from within our heart? Is this what's motivating us constantly? Or is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah truly what's motivating us in our lives? Now, within every nation, within every generation, you're going to have people who quite naturally incline towards this idea of remembrance, and you have those who incline maybe a bit more to business and trade and these types of things. And the idea of sincerity was called upon when the Prophet ﷺ looked at the Muslims of his time period, and he gave them a heat of warning by saying that for the hypocrites, the most hard prayer for them to pray is Salat al-Fajr and Salat al-Isha. And he didn't say this because they were hard in the sense that waking up for Fajr is hard, or that after, work and you're tired to try to get yourself to Isha, this is hard on you. No. He said it in the sense, within the context that he was saying it in that this is something that's going to be hard for the hypocrite, because during these times, in the time in which the Prophet ﷺ was living in, nobody would see you. There were no lights like this beautiful masjid has. There were no lights. So nobody was going to see you coming into the masjid to pray your Fajr prayer. And we actually have narrations and collections to show how people actually at times would die during Fajr prayer or Isha prayer, and nobody would know. And so within the mentality of the hypocrite, this becomes a prayer that doesn't really give me much. I can't talk to anybody. I can't make my business deals. What am I really getting from it? And this is the heat of warning that the Prophet ﷺ was trying to give to the Muslims in this way of sincerity towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he also said in a Sahih hadith related in Tirmidhi, وَبَشِّرِ الْمَشَّائِينَ, give glad news or good news to those who walk to the masjid, seeking no reward in this life other than the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ also said that if there was meat being distributed at the masjid, you would see people flock to the masjid. And how true this is even until today. That if there was meat being distributed at the masjid, you'd see people flock to the masjid. And Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, one of the companions of the Prophet who related many hadiths from the Prophet that we have until this day, he actually said that he tested this. That he went to a group within the market and he said, did you not hear that the Prophet ﷺ's inheritance is being distributed in the masjid? Flee to the masjid and go collect the inheritance of the Prophet ﷺ. And so these men thought, wow. And they went. And when they went there, they saw nothing of the sort. And so to them, they thought, tricky Abu Hurairah. He's trying to get us to leave the market so maybe he can make a few extra dollars on his own. And so they went to him, yeah, Abu Hurairah, what was this about? You told us inheritance. There's no inheritance being passed out at the masjid. We went. And he said, well, what did you see? They said, nothing. We saw a bunch of people gathered in these circles of knowledge, talking about fiqh, jurisprudence, talking about hadiths, Quran, memorizing Quran. What is that? He said, that is the inheritance of the prophets. And whoever has collected the inheritance of the prophets has collected something amazing. And whoever has let that pass by truly has let something amazing pass them by. Sallu ala Rasulillah. And so the idea here that Abu Hurairah again was calling upon through the advice of the Prophet ﷺ was in recognizing, why do we as human beings truly make the type of decisions we make? Why are we making the type of decisions that we make in our lives? And it was said by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they see a better business opportunity or some type of entertainment, they would rush to that and leave you, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where you were. And he continues by saying, قُلْ مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ مِنَ اللَّهْوِ وَمِنَ التِّجَارَةِ. Say, what is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is better than this form of entertainment or this tijara, this business that we constantly seek after. And this idea really is teaching us a valuable lesson, in that it's teaching us that dunya should not be sought completely. But that, and this is again, I don't want somebody to mistake what I'm saying here. I'm not saying to be ascetics, right? That we don't take part in dunya whatsoever, right? But to recognize where the Prophet ﷺ said, for instance, that the most wretched of places in the sight of Allah are the marketplaces, the souq. And the most beloved places in the sight of Allah are the masajid. And yet we know that the Sahaba and the Prophet himself ﷺ used to trade in the marketplaces. So the real message, or the notion that was trying to be delivered to us, was that we need to recognize that while we do seek our provision in the dunya, we don't make that the goal. That this is not the ends, but rather the provision is something that we collect in order for us to meet our goal, which is the constant remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn al-Qayyim, one of the great scholars of this tradition, actually once said something that I want us all to reflect upon for a second here. He said, it's the craziest thing. A person can taste the torture of having his heart attached to other than Allah, and that person doesn't flee from that which he has attached other than Allah to the remembrance of Allah to give him that sweetness. In the sense that he's saying, it's so weird that we as human beings notice that our attachments to this life constantly let us down. And when we remember Allah, when we put ourselves, when you come to the masjid, for instance, and in all sincerity, true sincerity, listen to what, for instance, a halaqah, you hear قال الله وقال رسول الله, you feel amazing coming out. When you go and you pray just 2 rak'ahs in the masjid, for instance, truly, sincerely crying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the feeling that you get from this, the feeling of this attachment is unlike anything else, and yet we continue to neglect it and feel like there's something else out there that truly will give us this same type of satisfaction. And this is again the reminder that we're being asked to do. And what's again amazing for us to truly reflect on is when we think about the idea, and I've heard many brothers come up to me and say, I tried to pray, I tried to get into this, and I can't. I don't know what's happening, to be honest with you. I just don't feel it. I don't feel anything really when it comes to this stuff. And I try and I try and I try and nothing. And the question that I ask them each and every time, and I ask myself, I'm as much to blame as anybody, this is a struggle, just a human struggle, is how much have we given to our salah in order for our salah to actually give back to us? How much have we actually put into this salah in order for this salah to actually give back to us? When a revert brother or sister comes into this religion, it's something beautiful. And I'm sure that many of us have seen this, especially living in this country. Yeah? Where you see them stand up at the podium, not really knowing, how to say in Arabic, and the imam is trying to guide them, say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. I saw this once, and I saw the brother crying. So much so that he couldn't even finish the sentence. It was one of the most amazing things for me because I've witnessed this many times. But to see within this person what La ilaha illallah was doing to them, what it was giving to them, because of what they themselves were giving to it, this person probably had to let go of his parents to a certain degree, had to let go of his culture, had to renew so many things in his life. He turned his world upside down. And because of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saw that and was giving this brother something. And for me personally, a person who grew up Muslim, Egyptian parents, alhamdulillah, this is something that we have blessings coming up. But at the same time, we miss something significant in recognizing that when we just say La ilaha illallah like it's no big deal, while other people recognize that this is the biggest deal, this is what saved me, it should at the very least make us reflect to think about what is happening. What is this person doing that I'm not doing? And at the end of the day, it goes into the idea of sincerity and the amount that you've actually given, sacrificed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order for this blessing to come back to you. How many times have we gone into our prayer, for instance, and Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah gives another beautiful example of this, where he says, you begin your prayer, Allahu Akbar, and you automatically are thinking about what happened before the prayer. Your mind drifts and goes on to what happens after the prayer. I got this meeting, I have this thing, I have this other thing. And Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah reflects on this and he says, when the servant of God Almighty begins his prayer, Allahu Akbar, and his mind drifts, or her mind drifts to something else, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls out, Ya Abdi, O my servant, Ila ayn, where are you going? Ila khayran minni, are you going to something that's better than me? Did you find something that's better than me? And this should really make us reflect. This should really make us reflect. Because many times we go through these rituals like it's nothing. Like it's just something that we need to just get rid of and continue our day. Whereas the Prophet ﷺ, after every single prayer, would say, Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam. تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. Oh Allah, you are peace. You are peace. That thing that all of us continually drive ourselves towards to try and find peace at the end of the day. This is what all of our struggles are for. All of our struggles at the end of the day is trying to fill this void in our heart that makes us so attached to the essence or the idea of having peace in our lives. And in his recognizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is peace, that if I truly want peace, it's only going to come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I should be living throughout my day in order to get to the next prayer, to have the opportunity to pray that next prayer. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts from us. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to hear this and truly make a difference in the way in which we live our lives. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us on this day of Jum'ah, to bless our families, and to help all of those in need all over the world. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. To close on the idea of sincerity, I want us to try and think about a few things that we can begin to do in terms of really trying to implement something practical to begin this journey that is something that takes a lifetime. Something that takes a lifetime. You know, Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, one of the great scholars of this tradition, said that you go throughout your life seeking the truth, seeking knowledge, then seeking the application of that knowledge, and trying to be of benefit, to try to be of service to people. And at the end of it, you recognize that the true test is in sincerity, to do something truly for the sake of Allah. And this is something that he himself, Imam al-Shafi'i, said, I fear every single day of my life. Every single day of my life I fear. And this is who? This is Imam al-Shafi'i. This is one of the great scholars of this tradition. And many people sometimes think, well, this may be something that's relevant for me and you, but for the shuyukh, no, they're on a different level. The imams, they, mashallah. And as a matter of fact, Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, one of the great scholars of this tradition, actually said that they, the imams, the scholars, are the ones who are most in need. The ones who seek knowledge, the tulab al-ilm. They're the ones who are most in need of this sincerity. Because with knowledge, at times can come arrogance. And you begin to do things not for the sake of Allah, but for the sake of people, for the sake of your desire, for the sake of being some type of celebrity sheikh. That you want some type of recognition. And again, this question goes out to them. And this truly, brothers and sisters, is something that I want us to try and reflect on, to really think about in our day-to-day, and to recognize there's an ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعْ قُلُوبَهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, isn't it time, hasn't it come time, where those who say that they believe humble themselves, have khushu' of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, humble themselves towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and begin to, in essence what is being said here, begin to act upon what it is that they continually preach and what they know. And this becomes something that all of us really need to try and understand within our own lives and within our own practical application. What is it that we truly can begin to implement today? Today, in recognizing our flaws, in recognizing that this is something that all of us are going to end up doing. We're all flawed. All of us. Nobody in here is infallible. And that was never the point, which is why the Prophet ﷺ actually told us that all of human beings will make mistakes. كل بني آدم خطاء وخير الخطائين التوابون. Every single human being will make mistakes, and the best of those who make mistakes are the ones who continually come back to Allah. Come back to Allah. Right? فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ. And this is a constant reminder that all of us can benefit from, and I put myself first and foremost, in recognizing that this sincerity truly has within it the ability to transform not only ourselves, but our families and our communities. And from that, as we see within the example of the Prophet ﷺ, this form of sincerity allowed for him and the community to change the world. He wasn't after anything. He wasn't after anything. He wasn't after fame. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. And here's something for us again to reflect on, and I'll leave it with this. Many times we come back to the religion at a point in where some calamity happens to us. Somebody dies. We get into a really bad accident. And I'm not knocking this whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I am a product of something like that. But we must ask ourselves, when the Prophet ﷺ went to Ghar Hira, did he go seeking after the truth? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because some calamity happened to him? Did something bad happen to him in his life that made him flee to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or was he just seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with no strings attached? I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to have that type of sincerity where we go to Him with no strings attached and recognize that we have the ability within ourselves, to change our families, and through the example of the Prophet ﷺ, as we've seen, we do have the ability to change the world. Allahumma a'izz al-Islam wal-Muslimin. Allahumma a'izz al-Islam wal-Muslimin. Allahumma a'izz al-Islam wal-Muslimin. Allahumma ighfir lana warhamna wa anta khairur rahimin. Allahumma ighfir lana wa liwalidina wa lilmu'minina wal-mu'minat wal-muslimina wal-muslimat lil-ahya'i minhum wal-amwat. Oh Allah, we ask you, Ya Rabbi, Ya Kareem, to accept from us this Jum'ah, to make us of those who are sincere, and to rectify our affairs, to lift up the Muslims, and to allow us to be of benefit to our communities, to our families, and to the world. عباد الله إن الله يأمركم بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه يزدكم واتقوه يجعل لكم مخرجا وأقيموا الصلاة